Welcome, everybody. It's HogvilleNet YouTube Live. This is our special show tonight, a special edition. You know we do a lot of pre- and post-game, but this is different. This is our 23-24 Arkansas Razorback season preview show. We got a loaded deck tonight, guys. We got guests. I'm going to have a great co-host. We're going to have guests. I know that you want to hear from head Hog Eric Musselman. We're going to do that tonight in just a little bit, actually. But I first wanted to welcome everyone in. I'm glad you're able to join us. We should be available on Facebook, YouTube, and X, formerly known as Twitter. But once again, it's HogvilleNet YouTube Live, our season preview show. And I'm going to start jumping into some things right now. First, I want to thank my sponsors. You can probably see the logos up on the screen here, but going to start with Parkway Automotive here in Central Arkansas. Same with Fence Brokers, Inc., another Central Arkansas business. And Jose's Bar and Grill, who I just started partnering with. And that's my lead sponsor for my pregame shows in Town. So I'll be doing that throughout the season, having a pregame show and a postgame, but doing pregame at Jose's. So I'm glad to thank those sponsors. I want to thank also, and he's with us tonight, Jason Pattison, our producer here at HogvilleNet. He's making everything work behind the scenes. And of course, my co-host tonight, someone I've teamed up with for quite a while now, doing different segments, whether it's my Pig Trail Nation basketball segment that airs every Sunday. We do player interviews, players that commit and sign with the Razorbacks. We teamed up in New York City for the NBA draft because Arkansas had one of those historic nights with multiple players being drafted. Courtney Mims with Pig Trail Nation. Can't wait for her to join us. And I can wait. I don't have to wait anymore. Here she is. Hey, Courtney.
I just jumped in. I surprised you. They were like, here you go. Here she is right now.
Well, I was making that call to you, but look, as we get jumping into what we're going to do now, because we got Musk coming up here in a little bit, but I like to think of, kind of categorize things. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff, but when I think about from an overview for this team and kind of looking at a little bit recent history, injuries have played a big deal in the things, not just the roster, but availability of guys and how that changes dynamics for Eric Musselman and this team. Injuries to me are a key talking point. I know we're going to get to that. Some of the things that have stood out to me, and I've talked so much about it, how deep this roster is. I think it's its deepest, but I think 1 through 5 positions, it's probably the most versatile and a lot of skill diversity in there. So I think that impacts not only what the rotation looks like, but it also impacts how he can deal with injuries or foul trouble or anything else that might come up during the season. And the rotations, obviously, we're going to talk some about tonight. And I think we're going to get into schedule. We have to. Arkansas's got a big exhibition game this weekend. Doesn't even count. They're going to sell out Bud Walton. And it's Purdue, the number 3 ranked team in the country. Arkansas ranked 14th. But we're going to talk about the schedule in general because this is a season preview. Non-con, I think it's the toughest ever for Musselman at Arkansas. Conference, same thing. I think it's deep this year in the SEC. And then we're going to get into specifics somewhere in the show when we start talking about defense, three-point shooting, all the things that kind of play into how this roster was constructed to address problem areas or to keep some areas of strength continue to maybe be a strength. So I can't wait to jump in a little bit. We're going to get to Muss soon. You had a nice sit down with Trevor in Brazil. We'll see some of that. And then we've got a mystery pro hog. We're going to leave it a mystery for now. Going to join us a little bit later. We're going to dive deep. Courtney, do we know any other way? Do we know any other way?
No, we just go right into it. Kevin and I talk. If you watch our Hog Hoops reports every Sunday, you know that we like to talk hoops, and I can't wait for a whole hour of basketball chat. This is way longer than we've ever gone, Kevin.
Here we go. Are you scared?
No, I'm not scared. We got this. It's basketball. We're talking about a great season too. So
we're going to enjoy this while we still have you. I think Courtney's one of the stars in state covering sports, and it's got those national reporter vibes. I think you've got a great places you're heading. Who knows how long we got you, but I'm glad you're with us tonight. It's going to be fun.
Oh, it's definitely going to be fun. I'm ready to jump right into it. It's going to be a fun discussion. I'm ready for it.
Okay, so what's first up? You set the table nicely earlier. What do you got first for us?
Yeah, first, I think the biggest thing, we talk about the depth of this year's team, right? And so there's a lot of guys. There's a lot of new faces. I was talking to a Razorback fan just the other day, Kevin, and they walked up to me and they went, look, I don't know all of the basketball team just yet, but I will. I know and they asked me, they were like, who do you think is someone that I should know before going into that first regular season game or that Purdue exhibition? And Kevin, I was like, this is a great question, right? Who is someone that we're looking at, or who are a few guys that we think Razorback fans should know going into the season. I think you have some good answers. Do you want me to start? Or do you want to go first with yours?
You go. You get it.
Okay. The guy I've been talking about all offseason, I've mentioned him on the Pig Trail Nation. I've mentioned him on Ask Mike. I have mentioned him for a long time because I've been covering since he started really playing collegiate basketball, and that's El Ellis. I like this guy so much. I think he has a great basketball IQ, and that's because I got to see him when he was a young buck at TCC playing JUCO ball. It's hard to believe that this guy started out the JUCO level, but you have so many guys that go through that pipeline and either get to have really great collegiate basketball careers, or some of them get missed a little bit there. But my dad's a D2 coach, and he pulls some of those guys as well. Great talent there. And El Ellis was one of them. And watching him at TCC, I thought he was so scrappy. He found ways to make the play, to continue it, even when they didn't have an opportunity to. He was like, when the ball was in his hands, you knew that the play was going to be executed. You just knew that, which made me think, hey, this guy has great point. I mean, this is a great point guard attitude. He has that ability to be such a great point guard, which is obviously where he's heading now. Musselman talks about him as well for their team. I just think this is a guy that you just got to love how crafty he is with the game of basketball. His high IQ plays into that. How long he's been playing the game, like 5 years now? It's got to be 5 years because I've been covering him for that long.
This is the fifth one.
Fifth one. There you go. So this is fifth year in collegiate basketball.
Yeah.
So I just feel like that plays into all that experience. Now it's all culminating here at Arkansas, which is a great get for Musselman. So he's one. And then second, I gotta give some love to this guy. I sat down with him this week, and I couldn't be more excited to show you guys a part of that interview. But Trevin Brazil, I think this guy is hungry. I think this guy is ready to show off what he can do this season. We have not seen all of what he can do. He told me that. He was like, you guys have not seen anything yet. And he made that point. He said, look, my freshman year at Missouri, I didn't get to play the whole season. I was hurt. Here at Arkansas, it was flipped. I didn't get to play the SEC season. I got to play 9 games into the non-con schedule, but I didn't get to play the whole season. He wants to play a whole season. And if he does, watch out, everybody. Kevin, who are yours?
Those are great answers. Look, and I can't give just one. You know me. There's so many. There's a lot of toys under the must-bust tree this year. He loaded it. The stocking's overflowing. And El Ellis is a guy, through the 2 early dress rehearsals, exhibition season, 10 assists, only 1 turnover, and his shooting efficiency, 75%. 16 points and 6 assists. 6 assists led the red-white game. The last game, D2, blowout. Didn't play a ton of minutes. 16, everybody got to play. 4 assists led the team. 4 steals led the team. 9 points on 4-6 shooting. This is a guy that at Louisville led that team in scoring and assists. And people know him as a scorer. You mentioned JUCO. He was a leading scorer in JUCO. But at Louisville, he led the team in scoring and assists. And what I've seen is he's making the right reads on offense. As a distributor and a facilitator, he's facilitating. He's not a guy you're worried about, man. He's going to look to shoot every time. He's actually reading the situation. He's more than competent as a scorer. He is crafty, like you said. There's skill there. There's craft in his game. He's making those reads. He's got all that experience. He comes in with confidence. And you always wonder how guys are going to make that transition to a new system and come in from a Louisville program, big name, blue blood name, but not real good lately. But this guy's been really good. And he's one of the names I would mention in a trio of backcourt guys with Devo Davis, one of the all-time greats at Arkansas, in my opinion, especially when you look at postseason. Coming back for year 4 under Muss, kind of a rare thing for Muss to have a guy that long. And he's all SEC, preseason second team. You mentioned Brazil, preseason first team. Made that Karl Malone watch list. We're going to talk more about Trevin. So all these names were given out, but Tremont Mark, the transfer from Houston. You talk about Devo Davis's winning pedigree. Tremont Mark has it. He's got a Final Four coming from Houston in his little tool belt. And he's a jack of all trades kind of guy. 6'6" wing. I love his versatility. He's not the most skilled offensive guy, but neither is Devo, and they find ways to get it done. We saw what Devo did carving up Kansas to send Arkansas to the Sweet 16. So I love that trio backcourt guys with Brazil coming back. We get more to talk about him. And if I had one other guy right now, that's that that unsung glue guy hero that's emerging is another transfer, Chandler Lawson, the 6'7" forward from Memphis with that 7-foot crazy wingspan. Already he's showing me that dirty work, blue collar guy, using that incredible length and on defense to get deflections, block shots, get steals. He cleans up around the basket with putbacks. Love that guy and his value helping out Arkansas.
Yeah, I like Honcho Razorback said his two guys. He's going to go with Ellis, so there you go, and Tremont Mark. So look, he went with both of our picks there.
Another guy here we got. I'm blind. Let me throw him on.
Yeah, he was.
Jeff Goff just said Devo is going to run the league.
There you go.
Yeah, we'll see. Devo's look, man. Don't ever bet against Devo. That young man's got a. You hear about heart. He actually does. He's a leader, and he's a guy to me that. You know, you don't know exactly what you're going to get from Devo, but you just know you need him. You know you want him, and you know he's going to help you.
Absolutely. We're going to have to move on to our other topics because I know Musselman's going to hop on in just a second. But Kevin, that Purdue exhibition, everybody wants to know about it because obviously when you have a top 15 matchup in October, it feels like March. I just can't get this feeling out of my system of like, wait, this is March Madness. We're getting it in October. I know it doesn't count in the record books, but it does count for both of these teams. You know, when you look at Purdue, this is a team that's had time to stew over what happened in that NCAA tournament. You come in as the overall number 1 seed and you get knocked out in that first round by the number 16 seed in Farley Dickinson. They've had time to process that. They have unfinished business. I think that's why Zach Edey wanted to come back, right? He had an opportunity to go to the NBA. He said, nah, I got unfinished business with Purdue. The last time, this is just a little stat for you, Kevin. The last time a number 1 seed lost to a number 16 seed, that number 1 seed the next year won a national championship. So Purdue has a lot of high expectations going into this year. What are the keys to winning this matchup, Kevin?
Well, you mentioned how they're going to come in with that attitude. They're going to be a little salty. But also last year, they blew through their exhibition season. They won their first 13 games, picked up a loss in early January. It was the first loss. And they went on a 9-game. That team started 22-1. So they start great. Purdue's been a little dicey over the years in postseason. They've had an Elite Eight under Painter. They've had some good, decent runs, but they got a lot of upsets. Pay no attention to that. They're going to come in salty for that. They return just about everybody. Zach Edey at 7'4", 300 pounds. This is a mountain of a space eater. He carves out a bubble. There's a 10 to 12 foot bubble around the basket in the paint, and that's his territory. So you've got to find ways to be a pest. You're not going to defend him one-on-one and stop him. You might not stop him sending 2 and 3, and when you do send help, he's smart. He's going to turn and make a pass out or pass to an offside cutter. So you got to really be careful. To me, you've got to kind of play mind games with him, make him think you're coming to help, maybe back off, maybe you pull the chair when he thinks he's going to back you down and let him see if he falls or travels. Your guards helping down, digging down against his vision, maybe trying to poach some steals out of there. There's no easy way to stop him. 22 points, 13 rebounds a game last year. He's a very efficient player. They've got excellent guards. They're not big on the perimeter, big on the front line, but they return most of their top 8 rotation off a team that last year finished the season 3rd ranked before going in the NCAA tournament, a number 1 seed. They come in 3rd ranked, number 1 in Kim Palm, number 1 in CBS Sports, number 2 in the coaches poll, number 3 in AP. This is no laughing matter for an exhibition game. Bud Walton Arena, by the way, that place holds nearly 20,000. They're close to a sellout if they haven't already reached it by the time we're doing this.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that game, it's crazy to think about. You're selling out an exhibition game. This is an exhibition game at the end of the season, at the beginning of the season, and you're like, I can't believe you're selling it out. But it's that kind of game where it's a top 15 matchup. Everybody wants to see it. So you know that it's going to draw a crowd. So hopefully that crowd helps them out, that helps the Arkansas Razorbacks out that day, because I know that'll be a factor for sure going into the year. How big is that crowd? How many fans can they draw? And hey, a sellout would be awesome. That would be amazing to see. Kevin, really quickly, I know we have to talk about Eric Musselman a little, or bring on Eric Musselman, excuse me. But the season going into, you talked about that non-conference schedule. You have a really tough non-conference schedule. You have a really tough SEC slate as well. I mean, you really don't you don't get any kind of breaks on this schedule this year. For me, the matchups that I've got circled, you've got that Duke one, right? I know we've talked about that game. That obviously is going to be a huge one for the Razorbacks. I know a lot of fans are going to be there. That's obviously circled on the non-con schedule. But for conference schedule, Tennessee coming to Bud Walton Arena. Man, on February 14th, Valentine's Day. You hope love is in the air for the Razorbacks. Maybe not Rick Barnes' squad, okay? But that's a big one as well. And then also, I like that matchup with Missouri at the end of January because Trevor Brazile, that's the return for him.
Yeah.
I feel like that's going to be a weird matchup a little bit. I feel like that one, there's going to be some fun things there. So those are the ones I'm looking at. What are you looking at?
Well, I love it. Arkansas, to me, this is their toughest non-conference schedule under Musselman in year 5, and same with SEC. And I look at a 6-game stretch in non-conference to show you just how tough it is. I mean, Arkansas goes to the Bahamas, Stanford. The next game you're going to play, win or lose, you're going to play Michigan or Memphis. No slouches there. On the other side of the bracket, you hope you're in the championship part of it. You've got North Carolina, Villanova, Texas Tech, or Northern Iowa. Then you come home and your first game's against Duke in the first ever ACC-SEC Challenge. That series is tied up 2-2, and every game is like a heavyweight fight. 3 of them have been in the NCAA tournament. One's a national title game, 93-94. Hog fans know they won that one. Arkansas lost in the Elite Eight with Musselman in that second Elite Eight 2 seasons ago to Duke. Arkansas lost to Duke in the Final Four in 1990. So those are big NCAA tournament. I mean, you know, Duke's win over Arkansas in the Elite Eight sent the Blue Devils to the Final Four 2 years ago. I mentioned Arkansas in the title game. The only other time they've played in regular season was the preseason NIT, and Arkansas beats Duke in that. It was a loaded field. Both teams were ranked in the top 5. Later on that year, Duke goes on to win the national championship. So these teams have always been ranked when they play each other. This is a late November game. They're both ranked now. Duke number 2 in that AP poll. Arkansas right now at 14. I expect both will still be ranked. Maybe Arkansas's in the top 10 by then. But that 6 game starts with, I mentioned the Bahamas, those 3 games, then Duke, then you come home Furman. Talk about NCAA upsets. Knocked off 4-seed Virginia last year. That is a very good mid-major school in basketball, Furman. Arkansas, that's the first game after Duke. And then Arkansas goes to that neutral site for Oklahoma in Tulsa. And then after that, they get back to home games with Lipscomb. But those 6 games through OU, from the Bahamas to OU, that to me is a very tough stretch of non-con. I think the first 4 games in SEC play, we know Arkansas's had bad starts every year, it seems like, in league play. You start at home with Auburn, some preseason rankings already. You've got road games right after that, Georgia and Florida. I think Florida could be an NCAA tournament team. Then you come home to A&M, who's ranked and picked, one of the favorites to win the SEC preseason player of the year in the league, Wade Taylor 4. So you've got a tough 4-game stretch there. There's a couple other stretches that I think are going to be tough. You mentioned that Tennessee home game. Then you immediately go on the road, Mississippi State, A&M, both projected NCAA tournament teams. And then you finish up regular season 3 tough games at Kentucky and Rupp, LSU at home, and then at Bama. So those are tough. And you also get Kentucky at home in January. Don't forget that. Second straight year that you get home and away with Kentucky after only once had that ever happened since Arkansas joined the SEC in the early 90s. Back-to-back seasons home and away.
Oh, I mean, it's a crazy, when you put it like that, you're like, wait a second, all those games are those, it's stretches where you're like, what is the league office doing for Arkansas? They're just trying to make it tougher on them. But I know Eric Musselman's a coach that's like, we're not going to shy away from that, right? I mean, we're going to use it.
He's not going to shy away from it. And guess what time it is? It's about time. It's about that time to jump in with Eric Musselman, with Muss. It's time to jump.
Let's do it.
Addition to our show. Again, this is our look at the upcoming season. We're not just, we typically do pregame, postgame, but really wanted to the excitement surrounding this team. Another highly ranked team coming into a season. I think it's Eric Musselman's maybe his best squad when I look 1 through 13 and the scholarship guys who are available. When I start looking at positionally, the versatility, some of the things these guys can do, the depth and the quality of depth, the talent. But here's Eric Musselman joining us. We're very thankful and grateful, Muss, to have you with us. I know you're busy, so thank you for coming on. I just want to tell you, we're excited about the upcoming season. Year 5 for you. I keep talking about some of the pieces I think that maybe make this the most interesting, intriguing roster you've had. Certainly one with a lot of depth and positional versatility and diversity within those positional skills. But I want to hear your thoughts coming into the season about your roster, the makeup, the guys you brought in, guys coming back, and how you see it.
Well, thanks for having me on, Kevin. We're excited about the group. I thought we played, really good against the Division II school. We know that the talent level, against Purdue, we're playing against a great team with a lot of returners. But our roster, it does have versatility. We have point guards, three different guys that can play that position. Obviously, L. Ellis comes with a lot of experience from Louisville. Devontae Davis can play all over the floor for us, and Layden Blocker's done a great job as well, competing, defending. And then you look at our small forward spot, and we got guys that we feel can play a lot of different positions. You got Tremont Mark can play the 2, the 3, the 1. Had a great year last year at the University of Houston, and Joseph Pinion's a guy that can play the 2 and the 3 for us. An incredible shooter who's playing with more confidence. He's added strength during the off season, and Khalif Battle is a guy that has been injured for a lot of the time that we've been together, but he played very, very well against Texas Tyler last weekend, and is a guy that's rounding into better physical shape after the time that he's been off. And then you look at our front court, and certainly Brazil is a guy that can shoot the ball, can rebound, block shots, can play the 4, can play the 5. If we want to play a larger lineup, could potentially play some 3. He's fully healthy, although on a somewhat of a minute restrictions to some degree, both in practice and in a game. And then Davenport's a guy that can play the 4 and the 3, a transfer from Cincinnati who's got great range, really quick shooting release. He's had some really streaky, positive moments, both in the red and white game and the Texas Tyler game. And Chandler Lawson's done a great job at the 4 and the 5. He's a stretch 5, can play the 4, can rebound the ball. Bay Falls had a really good camp, plays extremely hard, continues to get stronger in the weight room. And then obviously, Kai Mitchell is a guy that started last year, really strong inside, really good in our elbow game and our DHO game. And Jalen Graham, another guy that can really score and play 2 different positions for us at the 4 or 5.
And having said that, because I love the way you memorize, what your guys can do. You don't leave anybody out. But, you're a guy that's been a top 7, 8 rotation. Sometimes when you really squeeze it down, 5 or 6 guys getting the heavy bulk of minutes in a lot of games. I'm not necessarily believing with all that you have now that you're going to get out of your lane as far as number in rotation, but you've been unafraid in the past to change some of those guys up, especially at the back end of the rotation as needed, maybe early in league play when and dealing with injuries and things. Do you see yourself as having more options now to tinker with rotation if it's necessary? And do you have an idea coming into the Purdue game, still an exhibition game, even though it's a big one, of what that rotation looks like?
Well, for sure, Kevin, we don't know what the rotation is going to look like for Purdue. I think it's kind of an evolving thing. I made a conscious effort, even against the Division II school, to get even our walk-on, Cade Abergast. I got him in the first half, which, we have never done something like that in the past. It's interesting. When I coached in the old CBA or the G League, we used to play 10 guys. We had a 10-man roster. All 10 guys usually played. And in college, because the game's a 40-minute game as opposed to a 48-minute game, and because there's only 30 games compared to 82, I think that's kind of when my rotation changed and became much smaller based on playing 50-some less games and an 8-minute a night shorter game. And then you add in the fact that NBA players are older. Many of them are veterans, back-to-back games. So I felt like college-age players would be able to handle the bulk of the minutes if you played 7 or 8 guys. Certainly, if your roster dictates to play more and guys are producing, you want to try to do that. Although even with a lower number of rotation guys over the last, I would say, really 7 years, the last 3 at Nevada when we made NCAA tournaments, and the 4 that we've made, here in reality, I don't think we've ever been tired towards the end of the year. So we'll just have to see how the guys play in the minutes that they're given.
Well, the formula obviously works. The results are proof in the pudding. But this interesting matchup against Purdue, it doesn't count on the record, doesn't help your net, but man, it can really help your team, especially what you're facing as soon as November. I mean, you got some tough mid-majors at home. You've got the Bahamas and the battle for Atlantis. We know what that lineup looks like. You got Duke at home. What kind of gravitas does Arkansas basketball have right now that you're playing exhibition games against teams that maybe are in the hunt for a national title as we talk about it in October?
Well, it's how cool for our fan base to be able to have, Purdue's ranked number 3 in the AP poll. CBS Sports came out today and had Purdue ranked number 1 in the country. Ken Palm has Purdue number 1 in the country. I mean, what an opportunity for our fans to watch what probably is going to be the player of the year in number 15, Zach Edey, to see one of the most exciting guards in number 3, Smith, who came off an incredible freshman year for Purdue. And what a great vehicle for us as a staff and the players to try to figure out where we are right now. And Purdue is going to expose some holes without a doubt, both offensively and defensively, because they're way ahead of where we are based on their experience, based on the fact that they are just coming off 4 games overseas. So not only a ton of returners, but then you add in the fact that they've also had 4 games under their belt overseas. They're much more advanced than us, but we're really thankful that Coach Painter's bringing his ball club into Bud Walton. And I think it's a great opportunity for Purdue as well. They're going to play in front of hopefully 15,000 fans or more, and I think it's a win-win for both programs.
No doubt. Zach Edey is a 7'4" mountain of a space eater. He works so well in that 10 to 12-foot bubble. He gives himself around the basket. He doesn't have to be explosive to the rim. He just turns and he's there if he can get the ball up high. Great basketball player, a lot of good pieces around him. You talked about it earlier today. But this is also an overview of the season. So I was kind of talking about some of those other games. Duke, SEC, maybe 8 or 9 teams with some NCAA tournament quality, just kind of trying to project it from here. That's a deep league, Muss, and these kind of games are going to help you not only in non-conference, but another tough SEC. I think this is your toughest schedule, both non-con and league. Where do you see that, and how do you think your guys are put together to navigate it?
Well, for sure, it's our toughest non-conference because, the 3 games in Nassau, Bahamas, in the Battle of Atlantis, the Bad Boy Mowers Battle of Atlantis, and then you add in the fact that, we have teams like Furman coming in here, and Furman, a lot of people understand what a great coaching job they do. And, you play Oklahoma and Tulsa, and it's an incredible non-conference, Duke at home. And then you add in the fact that our league is probably better than it's been any year since I've been in it. There's more depth, ton of NBA talent in our league. So a lot of challenges ahead. We understand that it's hard to win in this league, but the key is how do we position ourselves, both non-conference scheduling, and then now that the games are here, getting enough wins to hear your name called on Selection Sunday, and then can you make a run in March is really our total focus. Certainly, we'd love to be in the running for SEC crown. But above all else is how do we make a tournament, and then how do we advance in the tournament? In my opinion, or philosophically for our program, that's much more important than just the league play.
Well, certainly. I always feel like your off-season recruiting, your portal recruiting kind of reflects some of the things maybe that you're tinkering and trying to get better. And I feel like this roster maybe addresses so many things that have been a bugaboo in the past on the court, but injuries have always kind of creeped in there. It happens a lot for other teams as well. How do you feel like where you are coming into the season? Because I know there's guys like Brazil getting back, Graham, kind of trying to get back now, Battle getting back. You talked a little bit about it, but do you feel like you've recruited enough depth and quality there so if you do have some injuries in season that you can maybe deal with it a little better maybe than it has happened in league play?
We hope so, Kevin. We do believe that we do have a deep enough roster to withstand whether it's foul trouble, whether it's a guy that might have a sickness on game night. It could be a guy that has an ankle sprain. It could be any type of injury. Certainly, when Isaiah Joe went out in year one for us, those 5 games we struggled. When Justin Smith went out a couple years ago, we struggled. We struggled last year when Brazil was lost for the season. And then towards the end of the season, we regrouped. We figured out our identity again. We had to, when you have a major injury, Kevin, you have to kind of remake who you are, so to speak. And we were able to do that last year. But I certainly think with this year's team, we do have depth and we do have experience that hopefully we can withstand anything that could possibly happen to our team or our roster.
I want to wrap this with this. Arkansas is a national brand. It is nationally relevant. It's a team that comes in now 3 years in a row with preseason rankings. You finish with the rankings every year, back to back Sweet 16s with a couple of Elite Eights in there. What do teams around college basketball need to know about this team? We talked about how tough the schedule is. A lot of really good teams are going to find out. What are you seeing in this team that the other teams need to be ready for?
Well, I'm still trying to figure out exactly who we are. I know there's a lot of excitement. In a small sample size, we have shot the ball better. We need to prove ourselves as far as a team that can gel, a team that can play together. We've got to continue to get better defensively. I think offensively, we've shown some good glimpses with some spurtability of shooting the basketball. And then always rebounding, is going to determine how good your defense ultimately can be. So defensive rebounding becomes extremely important. And I think, Kevin, we'll get a little bit of glimpse because we're playing one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country, because number 1 First really rebounds, and number 0 Gillis is a physical rebounder, and Kaufman Wren.
Yeah.
So Purdue's got a great front line of rebounding the ball.
Well, you've got some nice bookends in Brazil and Devo. I know Brazil may still be a work in progress on when he gets back to being himself fully, but you got a lot of nice stuff in between. So we wish you a lot of success, you and the Arkansas Razorbacks. Year 5 for Eric Musselman with the Razorbacks. We appreciate you joining us on our overview of the season, our preseason talk. We do these pregame and postgame, Muss. Too bad you can't join us for those. You get enough with me in the press conferences after games. But we really appreciate you coming in and helping us out with this tonight.
I appreciate it, Kevin. Appreciate you having me on.
Thanks, Muss.
Woo Pig Suey.
He's the best, right?
I'm in deep freeze. Can y'all hear me? Jason, you there?
Yes, I can hear you. I just you are in a freeze right now. You are in a bit of a freeze.
Jason?
It is Halloween, so maybe you're going as Mr. Freeze. I don't know. It makes sense, but we can hear you. So.
Well, great. Jason, are you there? Can you get this worked out for us, pal?
Our amazing producer, Jason. He is the one who's making it all work behind the scenes. So he is awesome. I bet he can get it worked out. But if he can't, Kevin. Do you want to talk really briefly, because I know Musselman didn't say in that interview that you guys did. I don't believe I know you guys maybe touched a little bit, but injury wise, right? You have Trevin Brazil, who is coming back, who's not fully 100% himself. You had Khalif Battle, who was dealing with a bit of an injury, but he came out and said, obviously looked real good in that UT Tyler exhibition. So, but also Jalen Graham, he did not play in that exhibition game against D2 UT Tyler. So I know we want to talk a little bit about those. I don't know if he's still on and can hear me. I just see it's myself. So I don't know if Kevin's on, but maybe there's someone in the comments that has a question or something that I can answer. Honcho Razorback says it's been time to give Muss a lifetime contract. He will get us a natty. I actually 100% believe that Musselman is the man to get the Arkansas Razorbacks another national championship. A lifetime contract? I don't know. That seems like a lot of money, Honcho Razorback. I don't know how much money they wanna give Musselman, but hey, I would throw the whole bank at him if I was them, because that is 100% a really good take there. Musselman is a guy who is so sound with everything he does. I mean, I just think it's so amazing as well when you go to practices. And I don't know how many people know this, but the way he prepares that team, every time we get to go to practice, he prepares that team with an NBA like with an NBA style of practice, with an NBA, like these guys are NBA players. Like that's how he treats them. That's how they get prepared. Their scouting reports, all of that is like they're professional players. Oh, there's Kevin. I was just talking with the viewers right now. So
yeah, I hear that. You know, Musk did talk about the injuries. Thank you for holding my water, Courtney. He did talk a little bit about injuries, but look, you know, he's not going to give us anything. And I didn't go specifics about is Graham ready, because we know Graham didn't play against D2 back spasms. And I'm not going to go there with him, because you don't want your opponent to know everything that's going on. Let them have questions about that. When, you know, one of the things I really liked about that interview, I told Musk, this is a season overview, and he kept kind of gravitating back to Purdue and talking about that. You know what that means? He can't afford to look ahead right now, even for an exhibition game. He wants to win that game, and that's top on his mind. They did a great job helping us and talking about some of the big picture stuff and the global look, but also he kind of kept gravitating back towards talking about Purdue. So that tells me that game means a lot to him, not just to have it and have all those fans, but maybe a shot to win it, even if it doesn't count on the record.
I think you're exactly right on that, Kevin. I heard him kept gravitating back to and Purdue. He brings up, even when you're talking about a season, you're talking about strengths of this team in the season. And I love that he's like, but Purdue is going to test us on that. But Purdue is going to highlight some of the things that we're either not good at or we're good at. And I think that's how you want your head coach to be. You want them to focus on the game at hand. I like this question from Kingsley real quick. I know we got to get to my Trevin Brazil interview, but Kingsley, I like this question. Will this team get off to a faster start, or do you think this will be another team that hits its stride early spring? I think that's a really good question, because that has traditionally been a thing with Musselman's teams. But also I think it's good because, you know, this team is still new. These group of guys, the guys he brought in from the portal, those transfers we talked about, they're still new. I do think that experience helps with getting off to a faster start. Do you agree with me there,
Well,
Kevin?
we've said it a lot on the show, on our Pig Trail Nation segments. It's a point I've made a lot. I think they're constructed to maybe start better than in SEC play. I kind of mentioned that first 4-game stretch. That's what you're really keeping your eyes on. How does Arkansas get out of the gates? Because it's been slow starts. Now, they've recovered well and finished well in season. That's what really matters. Something Musselman talked about, their focus as a program on March. And I would rather hear that than to say our first priority is to win the SEC. That'd be great. They want to win it. But even if they start slow, but I think they're constructed better to answer that question because of all the experience. And by that time, they're going to have gone through many, many tough games. I mentioned that non-conference 6-game stretch. Musk talked about those same games. So I think this could be a better team early in SEC play.
Absolutely. So there you go, Kingsley. That's the answer to that great question there for you. Kevin, I do want to get to this Trevin Brazil little snippet for you, because this has been really cool.
Wait.
I know. I'm so excited. Now, this is only like about a couple of minutes. I'm sorry, I only can show the people a couple of minutes, because you're going to have to watch Pig Trail Nation, shameless plug, on November 7th. We have our basketball season special. It is all about basketball. So you are going to get exclusive interviews there, like this Trevin Brazil one, and much, much more. You can also see the full thing on that day, November 7th, on HogvilleNet. So make sure you keep an eye out. We went for about, I think, 15, 20 minutes. So, but without further ado, let's show the people a little snippet, a little teaser clip of that interview that I got to do with Trevin Brazil this week.
Do you feel like there's a part of your game that maybe in the 9 games you played last season, you're just such a versatile player, but is there a part that you said, you know what, I'm going to go into this season and I'm going to be even better at that part?
I That's a good question. I would say probably defensively, I wanted to get, a lot better, not as far as blocking shots and, all the other stuff, but, being more on the ball, guarding guards, being able to switch 1 through 5, guarding the big man, just being able to do a little bit of everything, defensively, because, I know I can do offensively. I'm going to dunk the ball, and I'm going to, hit my open threes. But offensively, I feel like I've gotten a lot more confident putting it on the ground and being more, involved in the offense.
What's given you that confidence in the off season?
Just preparation. I had to sit out. The 9 months definitely prepared me. More than anything. The return to play probably started, in August. I've had, almost 2 or 3 months now to, get back acclimated to it. So my teammates have been great. The coaches have been great at being patient with me, and I couldn't ask for, anything more than that.
Do you think there's a part of Trevin Brazile that the fans haven't gotten to see yet because you only played 9 games last season and we didn't get to see you in conference play? Do you think there's a part that you're kind of keeping quiet there, that they just haven't seen the full thing of what you can do?
Without a question, my freshman year, I missed the non-conference, so I missed the first 9 games my freshman year. Got to play the SEC, and then here at Arkansas it's reversed. So the SEC it's a different league. It's different than playing in non-conference games. You can't even make it up. But you'll definitely see, there's definitely a different side of me when it comes to SEC play, because I know what's on the line every night. I don't want to lose to, a team like Kentucky or, where I was at Missouri. I don't want to lose to a team like Missouri, and it's just a lot of competition.
I love that. He's a great guy, and the full interview is awesome. So make sure you guys check that out on November 7th in our our season special, because the season will have started. We always call our preseason special, but the season will have started. That is going to be Tuesday, November 7th, 6:30 p.m. on KNWA and KARK. I think I got that all correct for my Pig Trail Nation people.
Courtney,
oh, yeah.
You know what stood out about that to me?
Yeah.
He's talking defense. Look, I talked to an NBA scout who was Arkansas's pro day. First things out of his mouth, Trevin Brazile, lottery pick if he stays healthy. He didn't miss a shot. He was so smooth. He said it. The offense is going to be there. It's going to be a little bit of work in progress. He hasn't played in almost a year until he played those 19 minutes against D2 UT Tyler the other night. So he's not going to be fully sharp every minute he's out there, but he's going to round into that. But he's going to pay attention to those details. If he wants to be a lottery pick and he wants to fulfill that, they're going to be watching film on him all year. And it's not going to be just that offense. They want to see a guy that's improving on defense. Some of the things last year that staff challenged him because he was kind of up and down when they went to Europe on the boards, have a great rebounding game, then kind of disappear. Arkansas at Texas for exhibition last year, two ranked teams, just like Purdue and Arkansas at Bud Walton. That was at Texas, opening their new facility. I was there. He had just an awful game. He had a bad game that day, and then he bounces back. And in the 8 games he played, he was wonderful for Arkansas. The Hogs were ranked top 10. They'd only lost 1 game, and he had that big 20.9 rebound effort over in Maui to knock off San Diego State, who was a ranked team then, and the team that went all the way to the national title game. So this is a guy to me that's been a little bit inconsistent, even as good as he's projected to be. But he's had this whole year to not only get his knee stronger, but to think about, watch film, and dedicate himself to what matters. And he talks about defense. What was Musselman talking about? Talking about defense, getting on the glass. If you play great defense for 30 seconds and you don't rebound to get the defensive rebound, then you didn't have a great defensive possession necessarily. I think Trevin Brazile is kind of the key that unlocks a lot of potential success for Arkansas on both ends of the floor.
Absolutely, Kevin. And there's a reason why when I was growing up, my dad always goes, defense wins championships, Courtney. That's what my dad, as a basketball coach, would tell me all the time. Courtney, defense wins championships. And he's really right on that. Musselman knows how much that is true because he hypes it up every single season. He talks about, hey, we want to be good on defense. We want to have a really good defensive performance. And I think this team will be better at that, Kevin. If anything that we saw in the Division II game against UT Tyler is true, I love that they held him to just 1-3 over the entire game. 1-3, and 12 points in that first half. That's awesome. I mean, you got to look at that. Oh yeah, looking at the comments here.
No.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, 1-3.
Clutch.
They held them to 1-3, forced 20 turnovers, had 12 steals, but that was an inferior, team. It just was. So there's some good D2 teams. Arkansas struggled a couple of years ago and had to pull one out, trailed by 14 with about 10 minutes left. This game was over in the first 2 or 3 minutes. L. Ellis was a big part of that. I've loved his preseason so far. But look, this is a different – obviously, Arkansas's passed the D2 competition and everything gets tougher, even with their last exhibition game. We've talked a lot about that. But defense, this is a defense that's been ranked between top 10 and top 20 the last 3 years. Everything else kind of falls into place around the defense getting steady, being consistent, and being one of the best in the country. That's where it starts with Musselman. And you're saying they might be better. I actually think they've got some things to work on, but they've got the pieces to be better, Courtney, which is scary because I think they're going to be a lot better on offense, especially shooting from three. I'm going to talk more about that later and some other areas where they've struggled on that side of the ball. But defensively, if they can get back to that top 10, 20 or even better, man, this is a scary, scary team. And this is why we're doing this season preview, because we think this might be Eric Musselman's best group yet.
I absolutely. And I say better, meaning that obviously he's had very talented defensive teams.
Yeah.
I think you're right in the fact that he has the pieces for this to be one of the best. I mean, really, this group of guys, these guys, like you said, there's still things to work out. But I'm seeing the signs of like, this is obviously a very big thing in practice in these exhibition games, in that red-white game. So I think that's very true. Yeah. Kingsley was like, who is your vote for a newcomer of the year? I agree with clutch.org in the beginning of the show. I said it's L. Ellis. That's L. Ellis for me.
I mean,
who's yours really quick?
This is beautiful. It could be the way he started. That's a great answer. Tremont Mark's a guy that brings a defensive reputation. He and Devo Davis are going to be just murder on these backcourts. They're going to be hard to deal with. And then you've got, to me, a guy like Khalif Battle, who's getting back from injury. This is a 3-level score. This guy has that East Coast, I'm going to get you mentality. He'll finish at the rim. He'll attack you at the rim. So he's not going to back down from a challenge at the rim. He's a volume three-point shooter, an efficient three-point shooter. And then if you drive him on and run him off that three line, he's got nice craft getting his mid-range game. So there's no easy answer. And in the game where he played off the bench against D2, after only being back to practice a few days, he's missed a lot of time. Yeah. You saw there was no hesitation, but he wasn't taking poor shots either. He knows how to play basketball. So you got a multitude of guys that could be the newcomer of the year. I mean, really, we haven't even talked about Jeremiah Davenport and Joseph Pinion. These guys are long-range gunners. This is what Arkansas has been missing. Our mystery guest, who we're about to talk to, knows a little something about that. We're still calling him a mystery guest.
We're calling him a mystery guest because we don't want to reveal who it is. It's somebody.
He's a pro hog, and he played from us, and he's got some really good. He's going to weigh in with some really good stuff, I believe.
Okay, well, we're going to get to him in just a second. I do like what you said, Kevin, with your newcomer of the year being multiple guys.
Could be.
I also like what Jeff Goff just said there. Give me more blocker. That's a guy that can come in if L. Ellis comes out, right? That's a guy that you feel comfortable. Musselman just said, right? Bringing him into the point guard position. You have a guy like that who can come in. He's a freshman. But he's a freshman, but he's a dog. Have you ever heard somebody call a basketball player a dog? Yes,
this guy's tough. Look, he's fearless. He's 6'2". I talked about Battle challenging guys at the rim at 6'5". Blocker does it at 6'2", defensively and offensively. He gets into guys. I've covered him since 8th grade. He's a local player here in Little Rock, and he's a guy that at both ends of the floor, you want him on the court late in games. Now, he's a freshman, all these experience and guys that are really good basketball players. I'm not predicting he's going to be an end-of-game guy necessarily out of the chutes, but he's a guy to keep an eye on. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and who can come in. That's that depth you talk about, that Coach Musselman was talking about, this depth of this team, right? Last year we saw them play those McDonald's All-Americans, play Nick Smith Jr., play Anthony Black, play Jordan Walsh. Those were all freshmen. While they were talented and one-and-dones, they were all freshmen. Now you have some experience that you can start off with in that starting lineup. Then you can bring the freshmen into the fold. Bring guys like Bayfall and Layden Blocker into the fold because you have that depth. They are there when you need them. But you can start with some of that experience, some of those older guys. I think Musselman kind of knows that, hey, I can start off the year with some of these guys who bring a lot of experience to the team and bring those other guys into the fold. Should we reveal who the special guest is now, Kevin? Do you think we've made them wait long enough?
Well, we're gonna do that. So it's time now. Yes, let's do it. It's time to jump in. It's time to jump to the mystery pro hog who's played for Muss. Say it. I'm excited about our mystery guest. I'm going to say it a third time because it's exciting. This guy helped Muss launch this program. You know him. I've been teasing it as a mystery all show. Now he's here with us. Isaiah Joe, a pro hog, a guy who did it great at Arkansas in his 2 seasons there, went into the NBA draft. He knows a thing or two about playing for Muss. He knows a thing or two about preparing for a season. In fact, Isaiah, first of all, thank you for joining me. Congratulations on a big win in your season opener last night. I'd be remiss if we didn't start off talking about your big role in that game, coming off the bench, 22 minutes, 14 points, very efficient like you always are, 3 of 6 from deep. Fans always want to know what you did from behind the 3 line, but big defensive effort, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal that you went in transition. You capped off an 11-0 run that you either scored all the points or assisted on the other one. It put that game away in the 4th quarter. But thank you for joining us. Congrats on that big win. How does it feel to be a winner after game 1 in the big 82-game haul?
Oh yeah, Kev, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you for having me. But I mean, it was a great win, a great way to kick off the season. The group of guys that we have, we're all excited, to get the season rolling and just to get it started off in such a positive note. We're just, hoping to keep grinding and keep trending in the right direction from here because it's a long season. That's just one of many. So we got to keep it going.
Well, you guys were 1 game away from making the playoffs last year. Nobody expected that, and nobody expected you to emerge on the scene like you did. I did, but I think around in NBA basketball, I think you were one of those nice storylines, and you're starting that way off already. So congratulations on that. I know you put the time in, and sometimes it might be hard to look back a little bit and follow your favorite program. But just so the fans, just as a reminder, I mentioned it, you helped Eric Musselman in year 1. Now he enters year 5 with a lot of expectations. You helped lay the foundation for what's now probably a top 10 program in college basketball. What is Muss? You played for this guy. What is he like? We're about to enter the season. This is a preview of the season. What's on his mind right now as he talks to his team about preparing not only game to game, but now looking ahead because you're about to jump in, for the next several months?
Yeah, first off, I mean, Coach Muss, he has so much knowledge about the game. It's insane. Like, he lives and breathes basketball, and you can tell, me as a player playing for him, just as soon as he touched foot on the scene my second year there, his first year, I just learned so much from him. He taught me a lot. He had some background working in the league, so he had knowledge to, drop down as far as that goes. But I think he does a really good job of knowing what each individual player needs to make it to the next step. And I think that's really, what's helped Arkansas's program, these last few years since he's been there.
It's interesting you say that because he's got to juggle getting players developed and ready for the next level, but he's also got to win. There's a big expectation. Yeah. You've always been a guy that balances that very well individually. You understand that you need to be a great teammate and it needs to translate to winning, but you're also working on yourself and your game. What do you think Eric Musselman, they've got at least one guy, Trevor Brazil, the big man, who's coming back from injury, who kind of projects potentially as a first-round pick. What do you think a guy like Trevin's doing right now to prepare, understanding he's got to balance helping a team win and also helping himself?
Yeah, I think it's just a mindset. His work ethic, I think if he has the right work ethic going into the season, everything's going to, play out. We already know that he's a hell of an athlete on both ends of the ball. So that's just one thing in itself. And then having Coach Muss there to kind of, just push him, help him with the things that he may not know, getting ready for the next level, I think is just going to complement very well. But yeah, definitely just, putting in the work, trying to be the best version of himself is probably going to be the big thing going into this season, just knowing the role that he's going to need to take on when he makes it to the next level. So I think that's just one thing, that he could really focus on going into this season.
Okay. So this next part, I need you to hang in here with me because it's going to be hard for you to hear. There's good news and bad news. I'm going to start with the bad news. This is going to be like blasphemy to you.
All right.
Arkansas has been one of the worst three-point shooting teams in college basketball the last 2 years, ranking in the 300s. The good news is, I think Eric Musselman addressed that in the offseason with his recruiting. I think there's 8 guys that he could put on the court tomorrow that can knock down a three. And I think 4 or 5 of those guys could potentially consistently produce some volume and some efficiency there. So they may be going from, being in the ditch to being pretty good there. How important, this is what I want to hear from you. How important is it have in this, especially where the game is now, having floor spacers, guys that can make a quick impact? I mentioned last night, you hit 2 threes, assisted on another one. That game was over. Chicago was done. How important is it to have at least one sniper, maybe a few, and space on the floor, and less is more and getting into that shot?
Oh, yeah, it just makes the game a lot easier, especially when you have guys that can drive and impact the game, get into the lane. It just complements, their game very well, because it just forces your man to make a decision. He's either going to help and give up an open shot, or he's not going to help, and in that lane is just wide open for the guys that are known for driving. But, just also another test to how good of a coach Eric Musselman is and the players that he's had. Those 2 years, you said that they were one of the worst 3-point percentage teams. They still made it pretty far. So, they find a way. And that's one thing about, the Razorbacks were always going to find a way. But yeah, so just having guys out there now that can space the floor, I think is just going to make the game, a lot easier for them.
Yeah, and I think that's what he wants to do. He wants to get better on offense. But you're absolutely right. They have found ways. It's not a knock on the coaching, but it certainly will be helpful to bring some of these guys into the fold this year. Another area, though, that I think gets overlooked a lot with you, and I want to make sure we bring it up, and I know this matters to Eric Musselman, defense. Everything really, all their success, you mentioned how far they made it, back-to-back Sweet 16s, a couple of Elite Eights in there. You got him off to a great start with his first 20-win season at Arkansas, and then COVID shut things down when you guys were trying to roll to your own tournament, but NCAA tournament. But defense, Musselman always complimented you on being very smart on the defensive end, always being in a great position, effort toward details, attention to details, and then he always complimented you as an excellent plus ball defender on ball and as a help guy and a team defender. How important is it on an Eric Musselman team, as you played for him, and then for any player moving forward in their career, they're going to have to pay attention to what they're doing on defense?
Yeah, I mean, that's important on every team, being able to play defense, especially for a guy like Eric Musselman. He does a really good job of letting his guys, play with freedom on the offensive end, but that comes with a price. You have to hold up your weight on the defensive end. But just somebody like me, I just always predicated my game defensively, because I can knock down the shot, but you have off nights on the offensive end, but defense is more of a mentality. So I think you just go in there with the right mentality defensively and just key in that way. No matter how your night's looking on the offensive end, you'll always have a reason to be out on the court. And I think Coach Muss knows that, and just teaching his guys and preaching that to them while they're there, playing for the Razorbacks, just helps them whenever they get to the next level, because then they realize, like, okay, defense is where it's at. Defense wins games, and defense keeps me on the court. So that's just something that can always be consistent.
All right, speaking of defense, I noticed last night, I left one stat out, but I'm going to drop it now. You set up and took a charge on an NBA All-Star, Zach LaVine, one of the best drivers and get to the rim guys in the league, in the world. They initially called you for a block. It seems to me you take a lot of charges that get whistled for a block, but I love it that your coach backed you up. They reviewed the play and overturned it on Chicago's home court. Big thing. But you and Jalen Williams in tandem from Fort Smith understand the value of rim protection is not just blocking shot. Taking charges is a big part of that, and that's part of defense. Talk about that art, because I think you guys have nailed it, and I think maybe anything you share, any wisdom you can impart, helps younger players who might be watching this, or any current Hogs who might tune in.
Yeah, I mean, that just all ties into, first off, just wanting to win a basketball game. You got to be able to do the little things, but it's taking charges is a skill that a lot of people, don't have, and just being able to go out there and take a charge on a guy when they're least expecting it. First off, it gets them, they get a foul, and we get the ball back. So I think that's just another way just to stay on the floor. Me being small, I'm not going to do as much contesting at the rim, so I'm going to find ways to, take a charge, get us a ball back, plus get them a foul. And I think that's just something I started at a very young age, back when I played in AAU basketball, and just, I'm always roll with it. So for those that, looking to take charges, it's a win. It's definitely a win.
Okay, real quick, and we appreciate you joining us, by the way. I want to say that again. Your time is valuable. You're on a travel day, and so we appreciate you. You mentioned some familiarity with Brazil. I'm assuming you've been in the Performance Center in some scrimmage or pickup stuff with him. You're obviously familiar with Arkansas's done in the postseason. What are you looking forward to? Because this might be Musselman's best roster. I don't expect you to have it memorized A to Z, but this could be his best team. We know a lot plays into what kind of season you have, and then March is a long way away. Injuries factor in. But what are your thoughts about his opportunity now, maybe to take the program even a step further, maybe in year 5?
Yeah. So I don't know too much about all of the guys that he has now, but I mean, I've seen a handful of them. I mean, they're definitely talented. He's got a lot of talent, a lot of guys that have been playing collegiate basketball, so experience is what he has also. But they also have a returner like Devo Davis, who's a great leader, who knows the layout and what Eric Musselman is looking for. I think they have a great shot this year, man. I'm excited to watch them play. I'm definitely gonna be tuned in all season. But yeah, definitely rooting for them all the way. Good luck to Coach Musselman this season. Good luck to all the players and the coaching staff, and I hope the fans enjoy this year from them. But I'm looking forward to a great season out of them.
We appreciate you joining us. Again, your time's valuable. Great insight today. I'm already starting the campaign for Isaiah Joe, 6th Man of the Year in the NBA. I think you should have been in that conversation a season ago, and I think you're definitely going to let your play do the talking. But I might, in the background, do a little bit here and there and tag the @NBA on X, formerly Twitter. You all right with that?
Yes, sir. Definitely gonna let the play do the talking, and I'm gonna let you do all the extra talking with it.
I don't talk unless I believe it, and unless I believe it, I may have a little bias, but I'm pretty straightforward with what I see on the court, and I watch all the games. I've got the league pass, baby. I don't miss a minute.
My man, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you for having me.
Thanks, Isaiah. Thanks for joining us. Good luck this weekend. I know you got a game at Cleveland tomorrow. Let's see if we can get to 2-0 and move it on from there, right?
Yes, sir. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Isaiah. Take care.
Yes, sir. Take care.
Wow. I mean, you talk about an ambassador. Right now, Arkansas's got 11 players in the NBA. That's tied for 5th most when you look at colleges and having players in the NBA. We know Kentucky and Duke, both 20 plus, but after that, Arkansas's, as of late, part of that's Eric Musselman. Before him, Mike Anderson put some guys in, but the combination of the two, especially lately, Muss is on a roll, man. In Arkansas, I mentioned 11 guys. Isaiah Joe was recruited by Mike Anderson, played a year with him, then played a year with Muss. But one of the best players right now in the NBA in year 4. But I think it's important to have pro Hogs on, not only the ones that played for Muss, but you're part of your recruiting, how you build your program and continue to have success is be able to point to that next level, because that's where all the players want to go and say, look, this is what we do. We help guys get to the league. Eric Musselman has that NBA background, that pedigree. Head coach of 2 NBA teams years ago, spent a lot of years in professional basketball at all levels, and now he's one of the masters in the college game. We talked about back-to-back-to-back Sweet 16s, 3 in a row, 2 Elite Eights in there. But in his 4 years at Nevada, not exactly a basketball program and certainly not a high major, he took that program to a Sweet 16. He's got 8 years of coaching. Half of those he's gone to the Sweet 16 and then 25% of them to the Elite Eight. So the next step for Arkansas is hopefully to the Final Four. I keep talking about, sort of in broad strokes, that this is a team that to me on paper looks like it could be a Final Four kind of roster. I said that last year. I don't back down from that. Arkansas dealt with injuries. We've talked so much about Trevor Brazile. Musselman called him one of the top 5 players in the SEC last year, but he only played 8 games and a part of the 9th game before he went down with a season-ending injury. Never made it to SEC play. Nick Smith Jr., first-round draft pick in this last NBA draft. By the way, thanks to our co-host Courtney Mims. She had some other engagements tonight, so she's moving on. But she and I are talking about the NBA draft. We were in New York City together covering that for Pig Trail Nation in Hogville. We were up there for several days and covered that draft. A lot of fun. 2 Hogs went in the first round, lottery pick for Anthony Black, late first round for Nick Smith Jr. Jordan Walsh was an early second-round pick. And all these guys were 5-stars, one-and-dones, freshmen just last year at Arkansas. But some of it was youth, some of it was injuries. Arkansas did make it to a Sweet 16. But I think this team, and I've talked about it, I keep talking about, multiple positions where you've got different skill sets and diversity of skill set. 1 through 5, there's depth, and it's quality depth. And so when I start drilling down on that, I mean, you look at L. Ellis. We've talked about L. Ellis. He's a score facilitator. He can play the 1 or the 2. He's going to be Arkansas, for the most part, their primary handler, but they'll do some of it by committee. Guys like Devo Davis, Tremont Mark, Khalif Battle. We talked a little bit about the true freshman Layden Blocker. There'll be multiple guys that get a turn, and it'll be also, where is the game at? Late stage of game, you might hand the ball over to somebody that can go get you a bucket when a play breaks down, or they recognize if help comes because the defense is worried about the guy hitting a late shot, then they make the right pass because you have a numbers advantage. So I think there's multiple guys we look at there, but that's why I think this diversity of skills within a deep at each position, 1 through 5. Musselman's never had it quite like that. He's going to stick. I brought up rotation. I told you I'd press him on it. And he says he doesn't have an idea of the rotation going in the Purdue game. I don't fully buy that. I think he does, but they have been dealing with some injuries, and there's still some question marks. A lot of experience. The difference between Purdue and Arkansas is Purdue's got a lot of cohesive experience. They bring back most of their top 8 rotation guys that have been in their system 2, 3, 4 years. They do have a couple of freshmen in the backcourt, but both of those players excelled as freshmen last year. Now they're sophomores. But it's a team that brings just about everybody back. Arkansas brought back 5 guys. That's a lot from us, especially when you look at Brazile and Devo Davis, 2 bookend preseason All-SEC picks. That's a big deal. 2 more veteran frontline guys that have been around a while. Mekhi Mitchell, 6'10". Jalen Graham, battling injuries, 6'10". These guys have been in Musselman's system for a year. Same as Joseph Pinion, returnee from Morrilton, a freshman last year. He's looked great shooting the ball in the preseason. So Musselman's got some returnees, but you're blending in a lot of key rotation guys that you brought in the portal in April. A lot of college experience there. What I've seen so far looks good, but they start to get challenged on Saturday against Purdue. And we're going to see that it's not a perfect machine yet. Musselman telegraphed it. He's setting you up. He understands that Purdue's kind of a well-oiled machine, and he wants to get there. You may not be there in October. So win or lose, it helps Arkansas because it doesn't count on the record. It doesn't hurt the net. You learn from this game, win or lose. And if you win it, you want to win it. You're not playing not to win it. You're playing to win. But if you don't, you're still going to learn about your team because you're playing quality. And you've got matchups you probably won't see the rest of the year in terms of a comparable matchup with a 7'4", 300-pound guy. But if you can figure out a way to learn from mistakes you make against him, you can apply those against guys that maybe are not as much of an uphill challenge for you. Because you're going to have all kinds of different styles and matchups. That's why I like this roster too, is because he can tweak the back end of that rotation as you go to deal with matchups. All right, Cameron Abshur, we know what to expect from Tremont Mark on defense, but what about him offensively? Points per game expectations. I don't have any. 9, 10, 11 points. He's a guy that when they got him, I knew would be like a day one starter type. He's got a big rep on defense. Here's what I say. I got to see 45 minutes of their open practice back in late September. Media got to go see that. They did some 5-on-5 live scrimmaging. Then we got the red-white game. That wasn't televised. There were fans at Barnhill Arena, 5,000 or 6,000. And then this last exhibition game against D2, not a lot of fans. He did score 10 points there, but not a lot of people have seen him. I've seen him 3 times now. And I think defensively, he's still a little bit of work in progress. Kelvin Sampson, that system they run at Houston, great defensive system. He's one of their better players coming out of there. A lot of success. This is just a little bit of a different philosophy in how to do things. And I think he's still figuring it out. He's not probably where Devo Davis is in Arkansas system, but I don't think he's far behind there. And I think he's going to be an outstanding defender. I see this team, and I wrote this a few weeks ago. I see this as a team that comes in with 4 potential all-SEC kind of guys at the end of the year. Not saying that many would get it, but that there's 4 that are potential. I've now raised that to 5. Brazile and Devo Davis, that's easy. They're preseason. The media that covers the SEC has already said those guys preseason picks. So we know they should be on the radar there and have a chance. Tremont Mark is another one. Khalif Battle, the scorer from Temple, is one I've talked about. I now have L. Ellis in that conversation, the transfer from Louisville, because of what I've seen in these 3 opportunities to see this guy. In the open practice, he didn't take a shot in 5-on-5. He was distributing the ball. He was running his team. I thought that was interesting because this is a gifted scorer. Then we saw him in the red-white game, 16 points on 8 of 10 shooting, 6 assists to lead that game. Just a heady floor game, made the right reads, made some tough shots, took good shots. Same thing against D2. All right, put all that aside right now. Even though the Purdue game doesn't count, I said they'll learn win or lose. This is a major challenge for everybody. Can guys that have shown us some things right now be consistent in some of that same storytelling? They've been showing us a story so far what they might be. This is the next chapter. What's going to unfold? Because they're going to be challenged. It's going to be a better measuring stick for everybody. So I'm going to go through where I see this rotation right now. If it were me, I think Musselman has a real sound idea, but he's also got the luxury, because this game doesn't count, to tinker a little bit with who he starts, who he runs out as a starting five, and who he plays and how many he plays. When they played at Texas last year, that game was close through halftime. We saw what I thought would be the rotation played out in the first half. Things got out of hand in that game early in the second. A very good veteran Texas team ran away with it. Arkansas young. Trevor Brazil didn't have his best game. I mentioned that. And the game was over, and Musselman started substituting liberally kind of early, 15-minute mark, 14-minute mark of that second half. So the rotation did not get to play out in a competitive game. So we'll see how this game unfolds and how that impacts who sees the floor. But I think the rotation, I mentioned it. It starts with Brazil and Devo on the bookends. In between there, you got Mekhi Mitchell, your starting center, all but one game last year. He'll be the starter at the 5 this season. And then I've got Tremont Mark along with Devo Davis. So Devo Davis and Brazil as bookends, Mekhi Mitchell, Tremont Mark, L. Ellis. So to me, those are your 5 starters. And if they don't all precisely start, they're going to have starter value. What do I mean by that? These are guys that are going to mostly be on the court at the end of games. They're going to play the bulk of the minutes. Devo Davis, in 3 years, he's gone back and forth as starter, six-man starter. He's basically call him a starter. He has been the guy. He's been one of those top 5 guys on your team. So when the ball tips, it doesn't necessarily matter who's in that 5. But I think that's your 5 if Musselman doesn't want to tinker in this next game just because the game doesn't count and try something else and bring someone that I just mentioned off the bench. He could do that. But I think those are your 5 guys. I think Khalif Battle is in that discussion. But, again, he's missed a lot of practice. He started missing in July. When they got back after an 18-day break in August, he's been out for a while. And he got back just last week and then played in that game, led Arkansas in scoring with 14 points. He's not bashful. And he played good defense. He played defensively. He didn't show no ill effects on that sore foot that they x-rayed. They were concerned about it. Everything came back negative. He's back in practice, and he's back to game action. Does Musselman, what kind of minutes restriction, if any, does he have? Musselman said he's not going to restrict Brazil 15 to 25 minutes. Well, in a regular season game, if he's fully cleared, that is a minutes restriction. But in an exhibition season, I can understand that. You don't want to wear him down and put too many miles on those legs in games that don't count. So we'll see. If it's a close game, Musselman may throw out all his expectations on minutes and try to win it and play some guys a little longer than he wanted to. So it's going to be fascinating look into things on Saturday, 3 o'clock, by the way. This is a live stream on SEC Network Plus. So you can live stream that game live. It's live. But, Bud Walton's almost sold out if it's not already. That's nearly 20,000 fans for an exhibition game. That's how big it is. We talked about the schedule, how it's going to help Arkansas. I talked a little bit about the history with Arkansas and Duke earlier. But some of these games, as you move through your November schedule, you want to win. Obviously, they count. They help your net. Arkansas's got really fortunate this year with some of the home games. You get Duke at home for the first ever ACC-SEC challenge in late November. You're going to get Tennessee. Usually Arkansas's had a bad stretch where they haven't not played at Tennessee in 5 or 6 straight seasons. This will be the first time they only got a home game, no return game to Tennessee. It's been a little lopsided there. Vols are ranked top 10 preseason. So that's another big headliner for a home game. I mentioned the home and away with Kentucky, a top 15-ish ranked team right now. So you got another home game with Kentucky for back-to-back seasons. Although you do also, for back-to-back season, have that return game in Rupp. By the way, last year's team won by 15, maybe their best game of the year at Rupp when you talk about how they performed horn to horn. But, you're back on the road against Alabama at the end of the year. Well, I mentioned Auburn at home. That's a team that's got some preseason rankings, not the AP poll, but they've got some. A&M finished second to Bama last year, really close second. team that's, projected to maybe win the league, preseason top 15 team, home and away. So you get a home game there. So Arkansas's got a lot of really good home games when you look at the quality of teams this year, which gives you a chance in Bud Walton Arena. I don't care what the other teams got. It's advantage Arkansas immediately just because of that factor. And then obviously the quality that Musselman's built season to season now. And in this one, the team's going to be good too. So just that home court advantage adds to it. So this is going to be a great season. I think the test out in the Bahamas, starting with Stanford, Michigan, Memphis, second game, one of those two. And then you got a chance to play North Carolina, Villanova. I mentioned that, Texas Tech. Some really good programs that have been good in basketball recently. And, over the long term, when we talk about teams like, North Carolina, Villanova, some of these. But so Arkansas is going to get tested away from home. Certainly in SEC play, they'll have road games that are going to be challenging. And when I think about that, I go back to the fact that Musselman, what he said was when we interviewed him, they really focus on March. I talked about it earlier in the show. He talked about it. So fans looking and clamoring for an SEC title, that'll be great. This team plays its best every year when it matters, when it's postseason. That's where, because they remember what you do in March. That's what we're watching. And so be great to win an SEC. Arkansas, I think, has got the firepower to potentially do that. Will they? I don't know, but I know that Eric Musselman will have them ready in March, and that's where that to me that's championship time. And I think this team, I've said it so many times, has the makings. When I go up and down this roster, I've talked a lot about maybe who might start, and I mentioned Khalif Battle as a guy. Maybe he's a sixth man. Jalen Graham, when healthy, is going to be probably in that top 8 rotation. I talked earlier about Chandler Lawson, the transfer from Memphis, 2 years at Oregon, 2 years at Memphis, 6'7", 6'8", crazy 7+ wingspan, giant hands, gets a lot of deflections, great basketball instincts. I call him a connector. He's a connector at both ends. He just connects everybody in positive ways. He does, and he's a guy, if you leave him open, he's going to knock down a mid-range shot. He's efficient from three. He's not going to take a lot, but he'll make you pay for sagging off of him. So he's going to battle on the glass for putbacks. He's going to defensive rebound. He's going to block a few shots. I mean, he's just going to check a lot of little boxes that help you win. You start stacking winning possessions and you start stacking wins. Isaiah Joe touched on that. Musselman talks about it. Musselman, again, it goes back to defense with him. Everything else will fall into place. Arkansas, dreadful the last 2 years in three-point shooting, ranked in the 300s in Division I. This group, I mentioned Khalif Battle, nearly 3 makes per game in his last 2 seasons. So that's volume at nearly 38%. That's if you get to 40 or above, that's elite. 38, you're going to take that with the volume that he takes. Plus, he can get it at the rim and in that mid-range if you run him off. And he's going to get into guys defensively. He's got some swagger. L. Ellis is going to be competent shooting from 3. Devo Davis improved as a 3-point shooter. He's been somebody that's gotten steadily better, had a really good season last year when you consider he was Arkansas in the rotation, their best 3-point shooter at nearly 35%. And his volume went up as he got more belief in himself to take those shots. He started making better decisions, better footwork, getting his feet set, not dribbling into a 3-point shot, but taking them off a good ball movement, some catch and shoot, and really paying attention to getting better arc on his shots. I know he's in the gym all the time. Musselman says he's an energizer battery. He runs on batteries because he's constantly working. You love that from your senior. You like that leadership and that example, that leadership by example. Not only the vocal part and the on-court part, but all the little things Devo does. I like that snippet of the interview we heard where Trevor Brazil's talking about defense. He's a guy when the NBA guys see him, stretch 4, all this versatility, smooth. I mean, in the exhibition game against D2, 4 points, 3 rebounds, a block shot in his 19 minutes. He's still rounding into form, but one play, he had a cluster plays, a defensive rebound on the other end. He comes in. You don't think he's got the angle. He comes in for an offensive rebound off a missed shot, goes over 2 dudes to get it, comes down, and a lot of big guys have to gather. They have to put the ball on the floor and gather, and then the guards are getting a steal, and it's going the other way. It was like a pogo stick. He soars up to get it, comes down, he's immediately back up and dunking on 2 dudes' heads. That's a vintage Trevin Brazil kind of play. But those cluster plays, we're going to see more and more of that from Trevin. I'm interested to see what his role is, and does he start? He's a starter. Does Musselman start him? He didn't start him against D2. I think he'll be in there. That's my opinion. I think he will. I don't know that Muss will do that, but I believe he'll be in that starting lineup. 15, 25 minutes. Let's see how close the game is. Maybe he goes more than that. Obviously he's a guy that I told you he blew away the NBA scouts. I talked to several. The one that went on and on about him. The other thing that scout said was Ellis might be Arkansas's best guard this year. We've been talking him up. Courtney loves him. She's been coveting him forever. But he's a guy that since I put eyes on him at Arkansas, I was familiar with his career. I watched him. I knew he was the leading scorer in JUCO several years ago, and I watched him at Louisville. But to see him up close to him in person, he's just making great decisions with the talent and the skill set to back up big production, whether as a scorer or assist guy. And you like to see a guy run the team that understands ball movement, getting guys involved, hitting them not only on time, but in the right spot. So they don't have to, fight with the ball. Now the defenders, has recovered and you lost an opportunity to get a clean look. All these are little nuanced things that some of these veteran guys are bringing to the table. The question then becomes, how do they mesh? How soon do we start to see great communication, harmony, some of these things just in the things that are playing on the court that you can tell that there's chemistry but that takes a little time. Even practice is not enough because you've got to play other teams and you don't know what until you see those live bullets against some other teams and not just going against yourself every day for months, do you start to see some of that stuff come together. And I think this Arkansas team, I think they will get there sooner than maybe some of other Muss's teams, which might explain also some injury stuff every year, but it helps explain why they've had slow starts in SEC play and why this team, if healthy, can maybe be better at the start of SEC play. So we're kind of hitting through some things that we've already talked about. 3-point shooting, I mentioned how bad it's been. I think Arkansas is going to get better there. I keep saying it. I mentioned some of the names on the guys that could shoot. Jeremiah Davenport from the transfer from Cincinnati, also a guy that's played 4 years, over 250, I think around 200 plus makes in his career at Louisville from three. He reminds me a little bit of Isaiah Joe in the fact that he can be 25, 26 feet, NBA range away from the basket. You make a pass to him, no hesitation, beautiful release, and you always think it's going in. He's going to catch fire, and he's already seen it. 2, 3, 4 rapid fire makes from three. All of a sudden you look up, he's got 11, 12 points, and he's been on the court less than 3 minutes. He's that kind of guy. That's an Isaiah Joe type. NBA range, quick release, no hesitation. Now, some of his decision-making, he had 6 turnovers in the red-white game, and sometimes maybe he tries to do a little too much. He'll try to create off the bounce. But he is a threat, and it stretches. I call it gravity on the perimeter. It forces defenders to account for him, and they can't help or cheat like you could on the last 2 Arkansas teams that couldn't shoot. They wanted Arkansas to shoot threes. They pack things in. You're going to have a hard time doing that with a Jeremiah Davenport. I think he's going to be at that back end of that top 8 rotation. I think defensively are some areas where he needs to, that there may be a challenge for him, especially lateral movement defensively. Same with Joseph Pinion, the sophomore from Morrilton, but he's another catch and shoot. He might be the purest shooter on Arkansas's team. He's had a great preseason. Musselman's got weapons at his disposal. It's, I think, the best 3-point shooting team, but free throw shooting as well. I mentioned Khalif Battle, an 89, 90% free throw shooter last year at Temple. Boy, Arkansas could have used that last year. Arkansas has been great under Musselman at getting to the free throw line, one of the top 10 teams almost every year. Last year, they slid a little bit on getting to the line, but then they were not very good efficiency-wise, under 70%, 69. I think this team will be in the mid-70s, which is excellent, or high 70s potentially. But hovering around mid-70s is where you want to be. I think they'll, the more threes you shoot, the harder it's going to get to the free throw line. So you want to mix it up. You want some balance. They fired off 34 threes against Division II UT Tyler the other night. They made 11 of those. 32, 33%, you'll take it. But I like the volume because last year, at least Arkansas knew what it was last year. It couldn't shoot, and you could tell the game plan was don't take a lot. And sometimes Arkansas would forget that in stretches of games. But they averaged fewer than 16 3 attempts per game last year, just under 16. So I think there was about 20 teams in college basketball at the bottom of it that were in that same kind of range of not taking very many. And their efficiency wasn't good either, ranked in the 300s as well, which is awful, around 31%. This team will shoot more. They'll make a lot more. The efficiency will be better. The free throw line is going to be better again. It'll be back like it was the previous 2 years where that really helped Arkansas close out close games. A lot of close games it's a grind in the SEC. You got to go to the foul line and knock free throws down. And I think a guy like Khalif Battle, that'll be one reason he may be one of Arkansas's closers You might see him play some small, especially in small ball lineups. You might see Arkansas try to close games with some small ball just for free throws, or do a lot of defense for offense substitutions late in games. Musselman's good at that. It gets to be a little bit of a chess game at the end of some of these tight games. But a lot, Arkansas back in the old days under Nolan blew a lot of teams out. Since Musselman's been here, they win a lot of games, and once they get going and figure things out, they're not blowing teams out. A lot of these games come down to 3 or 4 possessions late. And what do? They outplay. They're ready for those moments. They've been coached up for those moments. And you got to knock down free throws as part of that. You can play the X's and O's right, but when the other team stops the clock and fouls you, you better go make free throws at that point, because it's not about the chess match right then. It's simple. Go make free throws. So I think they're going to be better there. Musselman's teams have been up and down the last year or so with turnovers. I think that's something they've struggled with in the preseason. He's talked a little bit about it. So you keep an eye on that. That's why I think a guy like L. Ellis, Devo Davis in his 4th year, maybe tightening up some of his decision-making with turnovers. That's been the one area that's kind of dogged him throughout his career, but maybe he takes a step there. And then I think a guy like Trevor Brazile makes things easier for the other frontline pieces, because when he went down last year, no versatility or diversity of skill sets on that front line. Everybody was kind of a one-trick pony, and you turn the ball over when you have fewer options to challenge a defense. It gets harder, and that's when you make mistakes. And so we're going to keep an eye on that against Purdue as well. Purdue doesn't force a lot of turnovers traditionally, so Arkansas can't afford self-inflicted wounds. Purdue's a great rebounding team. That's, they were number one in nationally in some of the rebounding margins statistically. Arkansas needs to stay close there on Saturday. But as an overview of the season, they need to be sound on the boards. The pieces are there. Trevor Brazile can be a volume rebounder. It's just consistency for him. Now he's coming back from injury. Let's see how confident he is. Playing sometimes playing as physically as he can, because he's more of a soft skill guy, not a banger. But he can use that athleticism and that frame. And he needs to play through some contact. He'll have to do that if he wants to be better defensively, like he's talking about. When I look at Jalen Graham's not necessarily a physical guy, but I think Chandler Lawson, because of that length, the transfer that I've been talking about, the glue guy, the connector at both ends. I want to see his physicality a little bit in some of these matchups. I'm not saying he's going to go out and body up Zach Edey on Saturday, but I think he's going to be in the trenches there. And hold his own in some ways. So this is going to be a very interesting team throughout the season. It's, I keep wanting to gravitate talking about Purdue. Also, the game didn't count, but it's going to be a great matchup, and it might give us some foreshadowing, even though Arkansas is going to get better. A guy like Trevor Brazile is going to round into form. All these guys are going to end up being cohesive. Is it one of those things, where it plays out similar in a script similar to the last few years? It could, which is great if it does. If it does, so what? If you don't win an SEC title, so what? If it scripts like it has the last 3 years, Arkansas is at its best in postseason. And there's enough there and enough experience there too, that I think that there may be enough elements to get to that final weekend. That's the Final Four. A lot of it's, again, going back to how lucky were you with the injuries? What kind of matchups are you getting in the NCAA tournament? So much of it is some of the brackets are loaded and some of them are easier. Where do they send you? Those types of things. Even if you don't win the SEC, you want to finish. Arkansas was projected 3rd preseason. You want to finish high up there with a great record and a great resume in your net ranking, because that helps your seeding. And the higher seed you have, the more favorable some of your matchups are, especially early in the tournament, to help you get off to a good start. So all these things come into play. Certainly Arkansas, to me, again, going back, it's getting broken record time with it. But it's important to me to talk about, because I think Musselman has – every year, I mentioned it when I was interviewing him, in the offseason, he figures out kind of how their season ended, what they were missing, and he tries to address it. And he's done that every year. Arkansas's run into 2 eventual national champions. When you look at the last 3 NCAA tournaments, Baylor in the Elite 8, Arkansas played the Bears as close as anybody, closer than anybody did on the scoreboard. Baylor looked like a juggernaut. One of the, a great national champion. All national championships are great, but some teams stand out. That was a great Baylor team, especially in postseason. And then, of course, last year, UConn, that was not a great regular season team. It was a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. Didn't even win the Big East. But, man, the pieces were there. They got hot in postseason. March is when it matters, man. And they were not to be denied. I mean, that team was blown. There was not really a close game on the way to the national title game. And that score got a little close at times against San Diego State, a team Arkansas beat in Maui in November last year. But UConn just imposed its will on everybody. So Arkansas's ran into a couple of tough teams. Musselman's tried to learn from that. He's recruited based on – he's a guy that's constantly soaking in information. He's not afraid to change things or to consider other things. It's why you see him gravitating towards baseball managers and some football stuff. And he even talked the other day about, reading up on some hockey strategies in terms of rotations and other things. He's always trying to figure out how he can do things better. And sometimes you can even glean that from other sports because so much of it's about the middle part of it, not necessarily about the sport you're playing. I think that's what sets him apart. We can talk about all these things they're going to play in this year. The one constant is Eric Musselman. And Arkansas has been outstanding in these previous 3 seasons. When we, again, start talking about March, here we are in October, we can dream, right? That's why we're here. We're previewing the season, and that's the goal. Is where are you at that time of year? I think whether they're not going to be perfect. I don't see this team winning every game, so you're going to hit some snags. There'll be some speed bumps, but I think Musselman's one of the best in the business. Not only game planning for opponents, figuring out what the personnel and matchups need to be based on what you're trying to do in that game. If it doesn't work, he's been able to adjust and make in-game adjustments. Sometimes those things don't work because that's just the nature of sport. You can be great at all these things, and sometimes you still lose the game. But I think eventually he gets better than most at the end of the year. And again, I keep saying it, broken record. That's when it matters most. I want to keep going here just a little bit because I want to talk a little bit about Bayfall, the freshman center. I've got a question here. I know it's hard to know at this point, but I think the prediction of third in the SEC is actually too low. I think on paper we were better than A&M and as good as Tennessee. Well, Tennessee's had injuries. Ziegler's got us. We'll see what his health is like coming back. He had a nasty injury at the end of late in the year last year. They bring guys back. They recruit well. A&M, they got most of their guys back for the 3rd straight year. Most of the guys that are in their core front and back court, their core front court and back court. And that was a team that finished 2nd in the league. And, that's, Buzz Peterson, Buzz Williams. Buzz Williams does a good job down there. They didn't do well in the NCAA tournament, obviously, but they've been really good in the SEC. It's funny. Under him so far, they're not great in non-conference. They finally got to an NCAA tournament last year, and that was a flop. But they've been good in SEC play under him, and they're a tough out. And they surprise a lot of folks because they don't do well in non-conference as a lead up to league play. So you're not expecting as much as they deliver. So we'll see. Arkansas again, home and away against A&M, home and away against Kentucky, 2 top 15-ish ranked teams. Home and away against Missouri. Missouri was an NCAA tournament team last year, and that's got a second-year coach now, Dennis Gates. He's recruiting well, and he's a good coach. So that'll be interesting. I like it that Courtney, that was one of her 3 games that she circled. That's where Trevor Brazile started his career as a freshman before transferring in the offseason to Arkansas this time, a little over a year ago. So a lot of things that are in the SEC, it's a deep league. I think there's 8 to 9 teams that could potentially contend and be instantly tournament quality teams. We mentioned it. You talk top 3, A&M, Tennessee, Arkansas. To me, that's probably correct on projecting a top 3. Kentucky, Alabama, that's 5 teams. I think Auburn and Florida, Mississippi State. Now, Tolu Smith is hurt, and that the projection is that Mississippi State big, who's really good, all-conference kind of guy. The projection is it may be, sometime during league play when he returns. That could hurt Mississippi State, but assuming he gets back and assuming they weather that non-conference, those are 8 teams right there that I see as potential, having some kind of NCAA tournament looking ahead value based on what they're bringing back, who they brought in, and what they might be capable of this year. And so that's a deep SEC. Is it as top-heavy as it's been in the past? I don't know. I don't know that the top 2 or 3 teams are as good as some of the top teams have been in the league lately, but I think it's close. And I think the depth is definitely better than it's been. Because let's say that there's 5 SEC teams in the AP top 25, by the way. I think the SEC led all conferences and how many ranked teams in the preseason. So that already tells you some of the national perspective and perception of the league. And then you take and I'm saying now 8, maybe 9 teams with some kind of NCAA tournament looking ahead value there. This is a deep league. And if you got 8 teams in, that's more than half of your 14 member schools that are in the league. That's big. Everybody talks football in the SEC. The basketball's been really good these last few years. Musselman said it. I think it is the deepest. And I like it that he's challenging his team in non-conference. I love it that for a second year in a row, they're playing an exhibition game against a ranked quality opponent. Last year was on the road in Austin, Texas. I was there, opening up their beautiful new basketball arena. It was packed. Bud Walton Arena is going to be packed. Arkansas gets this one at home against Purdue, so it's exciting. But yeah, I think, I was wanting to talk about the freshman center, Bay Fall. Didn't get to talk about him as much. Rim protector, 6'11", out of Denver. McDonald's All-American. It tells you how good Arkansas's roster is when a McDonald's All-American may not be in your top 2 or 3 rotation on your front line. He's got a good strength. He's one of those guys, though, that can alter shots, block shots, finish lob passes with dunks. Excellent basketball player in terms of what he's done before getting to this level. He's, he's got guys ahead of him right now, but he could factor in because when you look at the front line, if you want to go big, Arkansas is going to do a lot of small ball lineups. But if you want to stay big and have 2 bigs on the court, you're an injury or foul trouble away from a guy like that getting minutes and factoring in. And he can bring some stuff to the table. I haven't talked enough about Leighton Blocker. I said he's a dog. He's a fearless guy. He's always been a very competitive player. And then when you get to late stages of games, he takes it up another notch. Those are on previous levels. This is the high major level. And he may be a guy that's comfortable with it when his opportunities. But he's also got guys ahead of him with a lot of experience right now. But it's just another piece. Joseph Pinion, his athleticism showing up more and more now because he had that knee injury. When he came to Arkansas last year, he was still in the knee brace. But going back to his sophomore season of high school, I thought that's when Pinion was on his way to being maybe a top 50 national guy on the high school level because he's an underrated athlete. And he's strong. And once he hurt his knee, it took him a while playing with knee braces. It changed who he was as a player a little bit because he's a knockdown shooter to begin with. Everybody thinks that's what he is, but he's actually more than that. He has shown that in preseason. But it does circle back to his shot because that's where he's most dangerous. He doesn't need a lot of daylight or a lot of time. Great catch and shoot guy, pure shooter. I mentioned Davenport, some of the other guys from 3. But when I look at the roster, I haven't talked about Denaje Harris. 6'7", transfer, another senior from Southern Miss, a guy that's one of those gritty guys that helps you get better in practice because he battles for everything. I don't see him in Arkansas's top 8 rotation, but he's a guy, again, with depth. He's got experience. When I talk about him and Chandler Lawson, who I've said a lot about, you go back and look at them statistically. They're not killing it in the scoring column, but they're efficient. They shoot over 50% because they understand what they are. They're play within a role. They're not trying to do things outside of their wheelhouse, and that helps you win games. When they do go to shoot, it's a shot they're comfortable they can make, and they knock them down. So Denaje Harris is just another guy like that. So you got a lot. 34 years combined of Division I experience on this roster. A lot of that was returning from those 5 players, but you got 8 newcomers. So a lot of it's in that mix too. That's more, as much as Musselman likes the portal, it's his biggest portal class since he's been in Arkansas, and this is the most collective experience he's had. Certainly Devo Davis coming back for year 4. That's not an Eric Musselman thing. He likes to turn that roster over every year, and he's got an all-league guy back again. So, some of these dynamics that work into this stuff, I think matter. All right, so we're an hour and 37 minutes in. I wanted to cap it at an hour and a half. I went over that even. I've enjoyed this. We had some technical difficulties, some glitzes in there. I apologize for that. I hope you stuck with us. I thought we had great interviews with Eric Musselman. The soundbite, the audio video that we got with Trevor Brazil, I thought was really good. I liked his talking points. Of course, Isaiah Joe knocked it out of the park. It was a great guest lineup. Courtney Mims, our co-host, was great. Thanks again to Jason Passon, our producer. And we're going to sign off from HogvilleNet YouTube Live, our 2023-24 Arkansas Razorbacks season preview. That was a mouthful. Thank my sponsors again, Parkway Automotive, Fence Brokers, Inc., and Jose's Bar and Grill in Tawnytown. Until I see you next time, Saturday for pregame at Jose's, and then I'll do a postgame from Bud Walton Arena. Until then, signing off. Thank you for being with us.